giving up. I'm going back to living it up. Tried so hard. Hello, and a very warm welcome to Gelato's Parlour, my series of podcasts. And I'm going to get straight to the point on this episode. This is one of the funniest stories I think that happened to me in my career, and I would say it's among the top 5 on the road tales that is so surreal and so bizarre and so funny that I'm not sure if it really happened, but indeed it did. And I'll cut right to the chase. This happened when I was in a band called the Chevalier Brothers. Now, the Chevalier Brothers are one of the top bands on the circuit, live bands in the 80s, and we built up a really big following among younger people. Well, I say younger people, we were young as well. We were only in our early to mid-20s doing this kind of swing music, and people somehow took to it. It was almost new to the people listening to it, and it was great fun. So we used to play basically all the clubs and pubs, which I'll touch upon on another episode. But we were really the sort of darlings of this university circuit. Now, the university circuit in those days used to have so many different bands. You know, on one night you could see Ian Dury playing, the Pogues, Kirsty MacColl, people like that. And in the jazz tent they'd have people like Acker Bilk and Humphrey Littleton. And us, you see, we were booked because we were the sort of hip young band on the scene at the time, doing this diverse sort of swing music which nobody had really heard. And we'd support people like Ian Dury and all this sort of thing, and it was fantastic. And the Pogues as well, and Primal Scream. That's another story I'll tell you about later on, another time. But basically, we used to have a great time on those university gigs, and people would really enjoy it and love it. And it was a great way of reaching a mass audience of young people doing those universities and colleges. So anyway, I'll just go back a little bit, because one night we did so much work. They used to be called the May Balls, so they'd run from May to June and July, I believe. And those May Balls, right, one day we would play something like Oxford University, and we'd go on stage about 11. We'd finish, we'd pile in the van, and then we'd drive all the way to Cambridge, and we'd do the 4 o'clock set in the morning, and get back home probably about 10 or something like that a.m. I don't believe we did that, and I don't remember in those days ever feeling tired. And I think we were probably fortified by cans of Super Tea, Tennant's Lager, which we'd always have on the rider for some bizarre reason. Anyway, this story starts. We were booked to do a gig at Christ College in Cambridge, and the tickets for this May Ball were phenomenal. They were a fortune, and the thing had sold out months in advance. And there was a big bill on. I can't remember quite who was on the bill apart from us. And anyway, we drive up there, and we meet the guys, you know, we all get in and whatever. And our drummer was a guy called John Piper, who was a fantastic jazz drummer, and John was very much part of my early career. He worked with us for many, many years. And unfortunately, 20 years or so, poor John passed away. He was only age 40 of throat cancer, which was a real blow. I miss him, and many of us still miss him, but he was a real character. And he was a Millwall football supporter, you see. I'm not going to go as far as say a Millwall hooligan, which he might have been, but he was a Millwall fan. So we turn up at Christ College, and he's brought 2 of these football supporters with him. 2 big fellas, you know, because John wasn't a very big guy, and these 2 big guys, and they're done up in the full regalia. Now, one of them, I can't remember his name, and the other one I remember was called Lol. And he was a real South London kind of Cockney bloke, you know, very friendly, very nice guy. And they'd hired this regalia to come into this gig as our guests. And Lol, I remember, was in Scottish regalia. He had the little sort of tuxedo, that one that stops at the waist with the bow tie. And he had a kilt, right? And he's mucking about, you know, lifting the kilt up as you do, you know, messing around. And so what happened was, we had a dressing room, and we were sharing the dressing room with a few other bands, and there was a big tea urn, and there were sandwiches, and there was all sorts of stuff like salads and coleslaw and all this sort of thing that the college had laid on for us before we played. Now, the problem was, we used to get there in those days really early. These days I'll turn up to a gig, an hour or 2, and that's it. I'll do a sound check. I don't want to be hanging around venues anymore. In those days we didn't know any better, so we probably arrived there about 3. Now, arriving there that time Wasn't a great idea, and I'll tell you why. Drinking. When we were younger, and we used to have a drink, so we were all starting laying into the beers and whatever, and the wines. And everybody was getting hammered. In those days, the band was me, John Piper on drums, Maurice Chevalier, the French guy who I mentioned earlier, Patrice, his real name, Maurice Chevalier, Roger Beaujolais is still around, and Clark Kent, aka Anders Janes, who's still my business partner to this day, playing bass. We used to call him Clark Kent because, surprise, surprise, he looked exactly like Clark Kent. And you can Google some pictures and you'll see what I mean. Big, strapping, 6'4", good-looking guy. He looked like Clark Kent, looked like exactly like Christopher Reeve in those days used to play Clark Kent. So anyway, we're all having a drink and we have the band sandwiches and all that sort of thing. Now, we were up on a couple of floors, about 2 floors up, with a window view over the street. And so things were getting really rowdy. And I remember, I'll never forget that John Piper was, when he'd get drunk, he was a lunatic, And I'll never forget that he thinks it's funny, and everyone goes out, all the other bands go out the room, and it was just us. And he goes, "Oh, look at this, lads." And he urinated in the tea urn. And then threw a tray of sandwiches in the tea urn, which all swelled up. Now, other people were coming in throughout the evening drinking the tea. We couldn't believe it. It was just terrible. So you had the sound, "Oh, yeah, have a nice cup of tea." And they're drinking this tea that had been peed in, and a tray of cheese sandwiches thrown in them, which is sort of swollen up. That's where the madness started. Anyway, John Piper's friends, Lol and this other fella, these two Millwall kind of, let's call them supporters, but they could have been Millwall hooligans. To us they were very nice, and they were getting more and more hammered. So we're all looking out the window because it was a balmy evening in May or June, and it was a lovely sunny evening. Now remember, no one could get a ticket for this gig at Christ College. And it was full of what we used to call at the time, we used to call them Hooray Henrys, debutantes and from money backgrounds. And we were all sort of working class kids, and we'd look at these people, have nothing really in common with them. Anyway, we're looking out the window, and I'm standing there with that Lol and his mate and John, and we're looking out. And this couple turn up, right? And don't forget, the window's got the street view. And they shout up and says, "Oh, excuse me there." And she says, "Yeah." It says, We really can't get a ticket. What are you guys? Any way you can help us?" And we says, "Well, we're the band, nothing really we could do." And the girl is going, "Oh, please help us. We really want to get a ticket. We've waited, and tickets have run out." And now the guy's done up in the nines, in the dinner jacket and all that sort of stuff, and the bow tie, and the girl's got the lovely ball gown on. Without we didn't even bat an eyelid. And this guy Lol, in the full Scottish regalia, he spoke like a real Cockney, as I told you, South London, you know what I mean, and all that. Even more than, a lot more than I do. So next thing, he's affected a posh accent, and he's got, "Oh, can I help you with something?" They've got, "Yes, any chance you can get us in?" Or sneaks. He goes, "Oh, just wait a minute. I'll be back in a second, and I'll see what I can do for you." And he's gone over to the catering table. He's picked up a catering tray, massive round steel tray, one of those trays full of coleslaw, and he's gone back laughing, and we're wondering, what is he going to do? What's happening here? And he's going, is he going to do what we think he's going to do? And he's poked his head out the window, hiding this coleslaw under the sort of windowsill. And they've gone, "Any luck? Can you help us?" And the girl goes, "Oh, I really hope you can help us." And he has literally dropped the coleslaw on them and gone, "Have some of that. Have some of that." And they're covered in coleslaw. I'm not joking. We're looking down, and the couple are covered in it. The coleslaw bowl is doing a wagon wheel down the road, like clattering down the road. The guy shouted up, he's like, "You bloody bastard!" The girl's like, I mean, in these times now, I have to tell the story because it happened, but we're living in very strange times, but it was funny at the time, and we're all, laughing, and this couple are covered in coleslaw, and that Lol is laughing, and we can't believe it. Now, the couple have obviously disappeared in absolute shock, and we're all just killing ourselves. So you've had the peeing in the tea urn, the couple covered in coleslaw. This is like the Spinal Tap, what rock bands get up to, and we were just a young band playing sort of swing, but we're acting like, I mean, it's crazy when you're young, you don't think. Anyway, ends up with Lol having because of what happened, our sound guy at the time, a guy called Andy Johnson, who's also sadly passed away. Andy and Lol have a fist fight, right, in the dressing room in front of the other bands. and I had to pull them apart. This is the madness of the evening. And Maurice Chevalier, who was the guy that gave me the name Ray Gelato, who you can hear that in one of the earlier episodes where I say how I got the name Ray Gelato. Maurice was a crazy cat as well, and he's probably had a few drinks, and he's actually gone. He stood up, and he's gone mad. He goes, "You want to see effing mad?" And he's run over to this wardrobe and kicked it apart. Wouldn't stop kicking it till the wardrobe is firewood, an old wardrobe in this room for no reason at all. And that was basically the end of the evening. And I think we got charged in those days hundreds of pounds via our management for this wardrobe, and we ended up going to do the gig. But I'm not sure what happened to Lol and his friend. I never saw him again, thank God. And I don't know what happened to the poor couple covering coleslaw. But anyway, that's the story from this Gelato's Parlour about this story, what happened. And I really hope you're going to continue listening, because I have a great time with these. And if you like it, please head over to iTunes and leave a nice little review and a little write-up about it. You can do that. I would appreciate that. But you've been listening to Ray Gelato, and this is Gelato's Parlour. Take care of yourselves, my good friends. I'm giving up.